So far, we have two other entries in this series, the introduction and a video describing the gameplay loop of this hypothetical game. If you haven't seen those yet, there is a playlist to keep all of these together, so be sure to check them out. Last time we did an entry, the majority of you voted that we cover some story elements next, so that's exactly what we'll do. Hello everyone, you're watching Variety Television, and welcome to the first part of the story section of the series. This section is going to be very detailed because who knows, maybe Nintendo will hire me to co-direct alongside Mr. Miyamoto on Pikmin 5. A person can dream, okay? As a result of the detail-heavy nature of this section, it would be an extremely long video, so we'll be cutting it up into parts so that we can take our time covering this mysterious story. Speaking of which, I had a cool idea that at the end of this series I could edit every part together into one full-length movie of sorts of the entire series, with intros and such edited out so that everything flows together. If you all think that would be a cool idea, let me know. Now let's get started with the story. One major element I want to establish with the story and setting is a specific set of emotions in the player. Above anything else, I want the story to be something that players find themselves wanting to know more about and dive deeper into. When you pair a good story with good gameplay, you can make a truly unforgettable game. And this is something that I personally feel Pikmin has always lacked, and Pikmin 4 is finally starting to make up for that. I want to continue making up for that and make this the most story-heavy entry in the series. As many of you have picked up on and pointed out in the comments, many points of story and lore come from characters' dialogue and Piklopedia entries and things like that, and this would be hard to attain with a solo and silent protagonist. Have no fear everyone, I've already considered this and I think I have the perfect solution. Actually, I've been hinting at it this entire time, but I'll just explain it now. So the player character runs a construction company that functions using the 3D printing array that they've invented themselves. This array can make almost anything thanks to the advanced AI system that the player character gave this array. This thing is nearly full-on AI though. The ship's pod, the player's tablet, and the printing drones are all connected to this one AI that operates the whole system. This AI will also serve the function of the Hakatate ship or Beagle, and it will name things that you collect. Not only this, but the AI has personality that is shown through very occasional dialogue, but mostly through its journal entries, which will take the place of the voyage log and Piklopedia. Whenever a major event happens, a new Pikmin is discovered, or a new enemy is collected, the ship will make note of it as well as write a page detailing information about the object or Pikmin. I think it would be really interesting if the ship is kind of building a voyage log on its own and the player character never asks them to do this. Kind of a way for the AI itself to cope with the whole situation. And the ship will then number the entries according to when the player completes them, so every player's journal would look vastly different and give a sense of unique adventure. Players could compare journals to see how their adventures differ from other players' adventures. Okay, so I think that gives us what we need to delve into deeper aspects of this story. The game would open up with the character creator first and foremost, and afterwards we'll see the first cutscene of the game. The player's character is seen working around their construction company's HQ. Since the AI is able to handle almost everything that the player can't, there are no other employees or other workers, just the player and the AI. The player's ship pod suddenly detaches with an alert sound and makes its way to the player. The alert is a notification sound for an incoming job request. The particular request comes from the president of a shipping company who wants some robotic arms built in his shipyard for moving freight around. This is a high-paying job, but there are two downsides. The president of the shipping company who put in the request says he will need extended time to make the payment, and the job site itself is located on Hakatate, which is very far from the player's home planet of Enil. Fun fact about the name Enil, it's half of this word, which is the Gaelic word for engineer. Since the company is in a bit of a dry spot, the company AI, Bucky, recommends the player take the job. Bucky is the name of the building unit and construction intelligence entity that the player character is credited with inventing that resides in and operates the pod, printers, and tablet. The player takes Bucky's advice and gets ready to set off to Hakatate. While on the way, the player's ship suddenly snaps out of warp drive and a red light flashes alongside an alarm. Bucky announces through the ship's intercom that a meteoroid impact is imminent and the ship's perimeter defense system is not working for some reason. They are unable to destroy the meteoroid as it barrels towards Bucky and the player. Right before impact, Bucky states that another alert has happened, an incoming SOS signal from the planet nearby. There's no signature attached to the SOS, so it is a mystery who sent it, and as soon as the news of the SOS signal is passed on to the player, the impact happens and the ship plummets towards the surface of PNF 404. While falling into Earth's atmosphere, we see a scene similar to Olimar's crash in Pikmin 1, but rather than seeing parts scatter across the land, we see our ship beginning to disintegrate in the heat of entering the atmosphere. The ship hits a tree, causing the player to be flung out and onto the ground, while the pod is also seen being lodged from the ship and sent careening through the roof of a nearby building. If you saw the introduction part of this series, you'll know that this building is a power plant, but to Bucky and the player character, it is recognized as a massive construction. Somebody built this massive building, but who? As the player character comes to, they receive an alert on their tablet. It's Bucky letting them know that the pod is okay and that it must be found. As the player approaches the building, we see signs of disrepair. Rusted coils and screws are occasionally seen, and if the player moves the camera around this area, we can see things like broken windows on the power plant and holes in the rusted metal roof. Luckily, the player awoke during sunrise, but the opening scene happens during a thunderstorm. The rain and darkness set on by the clouds against the backdrop of a run-down power plant sets up the feeling for the rest of the game: mystery and loneliness. A feeling that Pikmin developers wanted to hit with the original Pikmin game, a sense of eeriness and intrigue. As the player explores the area, the thunderstorm will rage on, and flashes of lightning will occasionally light up the area for a split second. Don't worry though, it won't be super dark. It'll be exactly what you'd expect from a thunderstorm during the morning time, just dark enough where flashes from lightning would be visible. When the player approaches the building, they see a problem set before them. The entrance is a large metal door that slides down, the kind on a loading bay door or garage door. There's a button that'll open the door and a small ramp near the button, but it isn't quite high enough to be able to reach the button. Bucky will suggest the player go around the building to try and find another way, and when they do, they see their path is partially blocked by a downed power pole. This will encourage the player to walk towards the end of the pole and go around. When they do go around the corner, we see the scene of a small clearing in the midst of the very tall grass that will act as the border wall for this area. At the end of the power pole is obviously a power cable that is lying across the ground and is still active. In the middle of the power line is a break where electricity is seen arcing back and forth between the two ends, with a mysterious yellow object in the middle acting as a connector for the broken line, completing the circuit. The player approaches the object at Bucky's suggestion and the object springs to life. The player will probably recognize this as the yellow Pikmin onion. The onion rolls out of the electrical current and into the center of the clearing where it lifts up, sets down its legs, and lets out a single yellow seed. After the first seed is sprouted and collected, 5 pellet posies with a 1 pellet and 1 pellet posy with a 5 pellet will spring up, allowing the player to gather a total of 17 yellow Pikmin. At this point, the player can access Bucky's journal entries for the yellow onion, the yellow Pikmin, and pellet posies. For those of you wondering, Olimar's logs and entries will not be available in this game for reasons we will discuss in a little while, but basically this is how the entries work for the journal. So you know how everything that is discovered in Pikmin is primarily named by Olimar and is almost always named after something similar that he knows from Hakatate? Well, my explanation for this game is going to be the same as my explanation for why the Sage Leaf calls onions and Pikmin by those names despite having never met Olimar. I believe the onions themselves are able to influence things like this. Check out those two theories for more info. This specific details of Olimar's logs being missing is important because at this point in time, the reason there is no information in the database is because nobody has been here yet to log it. That's right, this game is gonna be a prequel, and before you freak out, I have put a lot of thought into this, and I promise it will all make sense by the end, so don't worry. I also almost decided to go on a different route with the naming aspect and had Bucky come up with his own names, but that could get very confusing for players who are already used to certain names, so I think using the onion theory is my best bet. Anyways, Bucky suggests using the yellow Pikmin's increased throw height he observed while they collect pellets to try and press the button for the door. On the way back, the player encounters a dwarf red Bulborb that was not there before and is now blocking the path. The player must defeat the Bulborb to move forward and then can choose to carry it back to the Onion for the journal entry and a grand total of 20 yellow Pikmin. The Pikmin 4 limit of both 3 types and starting out at a max group of 20 will apply here. The player will then use yellow Pikmin to press the button and enter the building. When the player enters the building, they are able to find the ship pod almost immediately, but the door closes behind them, signaling that the intro section of the game is complete and there's no turning back. Alright everyone, that's part 1 of the story segment of this series. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next, be it environments, constructions, or part 2 of the story. Whatever gets the most votes is what I'll do. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the series, leave a like if you enjoyed, and that's all I have for this episode, but stay tuned, Variety Television will be right back.